So yeah.
Great. Well, I will call our last meeting of the regular board meeting of the Essex Town School Board to order, and I will ask Dawn to lead us in the pledge. Please.
Flag's right here. I can find it.
Yeah.
That's right.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Sorry. It's okay.
Any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? I'm seeing and hearing none. I will ask for any board acknowledgements.
Oh, wow, it doesn't
In
really
addition
that.
to it being that. Oh. Congratulations to our retirees.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really, I always find those occasions to be such a great opportunity to just reflect and appreciate. And I think maybe all the more so this year. Obviously, I think it felt pretty emotional for all of us. I'm never good at these things anyway, because I just feel such incredible appreciation and pride. But really amazing group of educators who chose to share so much of their time with us and the kids and families and staff in this community. So we're really, really lucky.
And to thank the team that put it together, too.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Lorna. Lorna et al. Really, they do it beautifully. So, but we had the opportunity to honor colleagues and friends, and I was really took our time to appreciate our fearless leader as
That was
well.
a mess.
Please. It really is hard. I know. Well, and because Peter's such a jokester, it did make it easier to follow, but yeah, it really, he helps to lighten the mood.
I felt so boring.
Well, he had spoken so much, people stopped listening. No, I'm kidding. I think he honored everybody. No. No, it was really a team effort, and it was really appreciated. It kept it lighter than my heart was feeling at the time, so it was really awesome. And Mark shared some beautiful parting words with the crowd, and just in general, like I said, we're lucky, and you know, you can't help but stand there and feel such pride for all that's been accomplished over the last 8 years, especially in this district for kids, and it's what gives us hope that unification in the way it's worked here is going to be contagious as we are spreading this pre-K-12. So that is among the acknowledgements, but there's probably 12,000 things going on at this time of year for everyone. So I didn't know if there's other awesome things you guys have attended that I've not.
Amazing orchestra concerts, even in the dark.
That's right.
Not dark. It was but just the amazing. You know, the kids, all the different trips they're on, and just hearing, everyone commenting about how great the kids are in terms of all, whether they're in Boston or Lake George or the Sandbar or wherever else they are, that they represent our school really well, and for almost as much as we can think of, and just to our graduating class, last, Essex Town School District graduating class that will be on Thursday, for everything that they do, and wishing everyone a wonderful summer.
Awesome.
I want to thank you, Rachel, for the Odyssey of the Mind work that you did this year.
You're here.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Hard. You worked so hard. They loved the trip. It's all they could talk about when they got back. So, thank you.
They're awesome kids. They're all awesome kids. And so I hope that all of them return with friends next year, and we'll figure out how we're doing it. But they're all awesome kids. Can't wait for next year.
Thank you. Well, since we're way ahead of schedule, I did a little baking.
We're gonna start that one.
I think we could start with it. It's not on the agenda, but we're ahead of schedule, and otherwise we have to wait till the end to eat. But it's just a wholehearted thanks to the team, all of you.
Nice.
Very nice decorating. Thanks back at you.
Maybe I'll ask somebody else to cut though, in case you want to keep mine.
Sure.
Okay. So I just thought a little celebration was in order. I know dessert before dinner maybe is not something we want to model, but whatever, it's that time of year. If I thought I could have done an ice cream cake because I was sweating
nice,
cooking,
yeah.
I would have, but I thought whatever we don't finish would be a mess. So,
Well, just to demonstrate the professional commitment that we've made to board meetings throughout our 7 years or so working with each other, we all went to the El Gato Cantina and decided not to have margaritas with dinner. So that's just, that just shows your commitment to the process.
I know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, wow.
Very nice.
Ice water
Such
all
a
the way around.
sacrifice.
And Peter had a second round.
I know. That place is really inexpensive if you don't have margaritas. Well, man, they wouldn't give you like a doggy bag for after or something. I was figuring somebody must have. Oh, man. Shoot. Well, thank you guys. I know all these nights. I hope you know how much we appreciate them because maybe we all have to be here, and what you bring to these conversations for us is a glimpse into everything that's awesome happening in our buildings. So Mark does his best as that as well, but it's nice to hear.
Can't do it without the team.
Yeah. All right. So if we're maybe we'll take a second and get
I
our.
can do this while she's doing
Do you want
that.
to do the consent?
I can do
Okay.
that. Yep. It's gonna take me
Do we have one for ITN?
Nothing.
Of course.
Oh, good. Okay.
I make the motion that we accept the consent agenda to include the minutes of May 8th and the corrected minutes of May 22nd as corrected today by the Essex Town Select Board. Approve the resolution to transfer all assets, obligations, and liabilities to the Essex Westford Educational Community Unified Union School District. Wow, guys. Acceptance. I like the shortened term better. Acceptance of general fund expenditures and revenue reports, special aid fund expenditure report, accountant's report, student activity fund reports, budget transfers over 10,000 dated May 31st. These reports are not prepared due to an unexpected health leave at the Essex Business Office, but they are being worked on. Approval of warrants dated May 1st, May 17th, and May 31st, and to include all the vouchers mentioned. And approval of request for proposal, is this blurry or is it me? RFP 2017-05, RFP 2017-06, RFP 2017-07, and RFP 2017-08.
I'll second
I'd
that.
make it last.
Awesome. All right.
Did you get it passed out? You're all set?
Okay.
Thank you.
Jackie, good stalling.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Oh,
If
darn,
anybody
you have to
didn't-
take notes
If
too.
you,
on all
I
of
got it. If you didn't see the corrected minutes, I have the hard copy from the select board.
Thank
And
you
I
to our
apo-
select
I
board
apologize for my error.
friends. Thank you. So since we are still ahead of schedule, and I had not really forgotten, but we had a little something for Mark as a board to send him
Thank
on
you.
his way. So
Well,
you
that's
can,
very nice.
it
Shall I
won't
open
take
it
you very
now?
long.
Yes.
Yeah,
We want to see.
yeah. It's the margarita.
A bottle. Oh, what'd you get? Oh, nice. It's one of my favorites. Thank you very much.
We figured you're
Truly.
graduating from us.
Open it up. No, you need
We've
to
got-
open it up, my dear.
Yeah, we have some notes in it for you.
Oh, you do?
And
I can't read this now.
All right.
But
You don't
thank
have to.
I will on the way home.
And we
I'm
got
not
a-
kidding.
There's more.
books on tape.
In a card?
And there's that, and then there's a card in there. But that's for you to hopefully enjoy yourself with your
Thanks
lovely
very
wife
much. Wonderful.
for
It's
an
a great
evening that
place.
you'll be
Yeah.
home.
Oh, he even
you
knows
know.
where it is, so
Yeah.
we're good.
Is it? Oh,
A night
good.
for two in Montreal.
It looked like a cool place online.
It's a great place. It's the railroad station in Morrisville.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks very much. That's wonderful.
Very welcome.
And in there
Thank you.
somewhere is a small card, like a card
Really?
card,
Okay.
with more notes that you're not going to want to read right now. Now
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
know.
be too hard. Yeah, thank you. I'll read it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
very much. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
And for you, it's often the case that you're in your role as servant leaders. You're serving your community and constantly recognizing the hard work among teachers and support staff and kids and families and our leadership team. We felt it was appropriate not to read now, but just a small token of appreciation, a little card that we wanted to have you each receive from us as a leadership team.
Thank you.
Well, thank
very
you.
much. You're welcome
you.
very much. There's no gift certificates. Or anything.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Really?
Dylan is
Thank you,
teaching a
Mark.
class tonight, so he's not able to join us.
Thank you.
Sends his regrets.
I remembered, I think he and I were at something where your retirement, the retirement where he's teaching at St. Mike's, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's very cool. All right.
We're not quite done.
For our fearless leader,
Oh my gosh.
our chair extraordinaire.
Oh.
Thank
You guys. Oh my gosh. Well, probably also not something I can
Probably
really read.
not. But you can open
Because
it.
I'm
Yeah,
not really
no.
great at it. Oh my gosh, you guys.
It's something you really need,
Yep.
especially after these few months.
Oh, you guys, seriously? Oh my gosh. Thank you. Okay, a little indulgence. It's not happening in this week, but I will be very grateful when I can put it on the schedule. You guys, thank you so much. It has been my absolute pleasure. It just makes me sad but grateful for, this has been such a fun board to work with. People call this stuff awful, and I'm like, really? I mean, Mark and I were just talking this morning a little bit about sort of reflecting on helping each other grow and learn and get it right and checking each other and evaluating ourselves. And I don't know, it's just been a complete pleasure. And you guys have helped me get better at this because it was not I was like, Brendan, I'll do anything but be chair. Until he finally left. I was like, are you sure? Come on, I'll be your vice chair and I'll do absolutely everything. But this has been fun, and it's been really fun to grow and learn in this way too, so thank you guys. And, you can always come back to this stuff because there's now a bigger board that you can help serve, or, any number of ways to continue to contribute because you guys have done so much. So, all right, well, thank you all. All right, now moving right along. We're just mixing up the agenda, Etienne. We really might be on the playground soon.
We're taking political license tonight.
That's right. All right. Well, I think we're going to hand it off to Mark, who's going to do a little wrap up with his team.
Thanks again. So there's a couple documents that won't be unfamiliar to you. One is the Thanks Ellen class size enrollment. Here's a hard copy for you. We also want to share and
Are they in the same place?
no, it's another doc. It says average enrollment down at
Got
the
it.
bottom.
Thank you.
Peter, Kevin, and Wendy and Ellen will give the board an update on new people who joined our team for next school year. And then we thought it was appropriate to, and important, to close out this year for that these guys share with you what they're most proud of in their work as school leaders, how they've grown immeasurably over the last number of years through your support and leadership as a board, and recognizing that it starts with, I think it's all about leadership, and these guys have exemplified that. And then finally, what are their hopes and dreams for a successful merger and a new unified union school district? And so these guys will take a few minutes to introduce their new colleagues and a little bit of their reflections on their work as leaders over the last few years. you guys prepared to do that?
Or did you just
Yes,
come
you
for the
were. You're
brownies?
supposed to say, we are so ready, Mark.
Like,
Thanks
no,
for
we
all.
just came for the brownies.
Yeah, thanks for all the coaching and support.
Peter and his
Include all
notes.
the
Are
sarcasm
those
in my
the same
minutes?
ones from?
I didn't have no.
I do not. You and I were both like, ooh.
Oh.
So, as we know it today, this is Essex Town School District, but the class size numbers were ones that I needed to align with the new EWSD class size guidelines, and I made reference to that below. The new class guidelines are modeled after educational quality standards, and if you recall, I didn't give you this copy, but our guidelines had a different cluster system. There was a kindergarten that stood by itself. Grades 1 through 3 were clustered, 4, 6, and then 6, 8. And I can pass this around to reference. I should have had it on this document. In EQS, educational quality standards, K3 are taken together now as a cluster, and 4 through 12. Well, I don't know what's happened in 9-12, so I just clustered it at 4-8, and it's as close as I could get to the new EQS guidelines. So when you do the arithmetic, we are in compliance with both the current ETSD policy guidelines and the new EWSD policy guidelines. And the average class size, K3 is 17 projected. Again, these are projections, and 4-8 is 23 kids. We're maintaining the same amount of educators because we reduced one teacher at the EMS, but we picked one teacher up here at Founders, new 5th grade position. So we have the same number of FTE as we did in current FY17. The other rolling number that Peter watched with great diligence is the K number. And we made a decision early on, as we recall, to keep 8 teachers in kindergarten because it's hard to chase down a teacher in August when we realize, oh, a whole busload just moved in. So even though the number of 14 is a little bit below optimum, given your current guidelines, Peter reminds us all that more than likely we're going to see some new kiddos move in between now and August 31st. So I feel really good, as we had the last few years. You've supported those lower numbers in the primary grades, and I think that this reflects what the board's hope was for this coming school year.
Would there be, I realize this would not be your decision at that time, but would there be any likelihood of dropping to 7 if we don't get a busload of kids? I mean, if it stays at 112, or how far would it have to drop before you'd say, we should get rid of one of these teachers? Is that
Well, it's my experience that it never drops.
never drops?
And they've signed contracts, Dan.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
It only goes
Not
up.
contingent on numbers.
So it's never actually crossed my mind.
Okay.
I would imagine it conceivably if somehow that dropped and one other bubbled, where our possibility would be is shifting personnel as opposed to riffing or whatever. We can't reduce
We have
force,
3 other
maybe issue
K2
contract.
buildings.
Yeah.
There are 4 of us now
That's
in
right.
the new UU, so there's always the potential for, not that it would be desirable,
No.
but I think there's more opportunities for transfers if that were to happen.
That's interesting to think, yeah.
And the reason the multi-age numbers are a bit higher than the other grade levels is due to we went from 4 multi-age teachers to 3 multi-age teachers. So we sent out placement, and we added a 5th grade teacher. So the multi-age team went back to a 3-person team. And so we sent placement letters out to parents a couple months ago and said, here's what we're doing, and we want your feedback around whether, what your preference is. Do you want your child to stay on the multi-age team and then be placed in one of the remaining 3 classrooms? Or how are you feeling about straight 5, and if straight 5's okay with you? So we sent it to all 4th grade parents, of course, and we got some great feedback, and we ended up keeping 6 kids on the team. We were able to honor all of those parents' wishes. Everybody else felt okay about a straight 5. They had friends in the straight 5 team. And move up day went really well today. We were a little nervous about that, but their numbers are higher than the rest of the grades.
Not unlike
new new 4th or 5th graders, they would go into the straight 4 or straight 5 teams first.
It's not unlike Kevin's 6th grade team several years ago where they chose to have a few extra kids rather than
Yeah.
reconfigure the team, so that worked.
I think it worked out.
The other question I had years ago, long time ago, there was looping, 5th, 6th. Is that something, I point at the two of you, sorry, you're not in this conversation.
But I was here when there was Luke.
I'm curious,
right.
is that something that's ever said, hey, should we introduce that again? And I realize, again, that's not going to be our realm, but as
I'd like to talk about it. I've been talking with Mark a little bit about it and some staff around just having some discussions around next year early on about configuration, looping and more multi-age, or what are some different ideas and just thinking outside of the box. But it's definitely something we want to think about pretty early on in the year and engage families in that conversation as well, and do some research around what works, what doesn't work, and make some thoughtful decisions around that. But there's some thinking about that.
Yeah.
I love the 2-year.
Yeah. Well, I guess the same thing may be I don't know, could you do that in 2nd and 3rd? Would there be value to that? That's something we've never done, but
You can do it, I mean, you could do it
Good.
really at any, you
Yeah.
could do it first to second to 3rd.
I'm just thinking, I'm thinking bridging
think for the-
buildings. That's
for
what
the
this
bridge,
is.
yeah.
Makes it difficult for the educators. But, yeah.
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 So that's it, pretty straight up. We're pleased with the numbers. I hope there are no surprises. That's happened to us a couple of times,
Do we know if
founders
the
in particular.
preschoolers are bubbling?
We already have 5 new 4th graders and a new 5th
Yeah.
grader coming.
Oh my gosh.
I had 2 people stop in to get kindergarten registration packets today.
Yeah.
Peter, Don asked a question about our preschoolers.
Do we
And
know if they're bubbling too?
We have, our Head Start program is full, our local is full, and we have waiting lists that they're there to be tapped into should we need them.
Thank you.
so any questions on enrollment?
And just one question, do you know if any of the other buildings do any of that looping? I guess it wouldn't be Westford because they stay together, or even in, other than straight grade configurations, even within a building? Do we know? Or
EDO 7-8 like we do.
they loop then?
I would love to entertain 5-6. And we've talked about it for a handful of years. And if we start the conversation early, it'd be great because we see, and same as Wendy, and I'm sure, well, I don't think you have any looping, but you have some looping people, is we see the data is just, it's completely
Yeah.
different. It's so much, it's just beneficial.
Yeah.
So when you don't have to, I mean, it sounds so silly, but and so trivial, but when you don't have to spend the first 6 weeks getting to know someone, and you can just start education 6 weeks. Not that we're not starting education, but you can start right off and go. You know the quirks, you know everything about the kids and where they are and how to get to them.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
Vice
You know the
versa.
quirks of the
And-
teachers.
That's
and
right.
vice versa.
Exactly.
No.
Absolutely. So I would love to entertain that.
Yeah.
We've looked at the building size and tried to figure out a way to do it. We could house it. It's just around the UA piece that would be difficult, and lunches and stuff, but we could figure out something.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the next part of the presentation is, who wants to start, but to have our primarily 3 principals, and Ellen has some updates as well, talk about the new staff that we've hired joining the team, and a quick little bio of where the position came from, and then a bio of the person that we've recruited and hired.
I have a small phone, just go.
We've got a great team coming in.
Do you have that document up there or not?
It didn't get in the board package for some reason.
All right, so Essex Middle School, we really only have a couple of things going on this upcoming year, which is great. So Sheila Bochar, who currently teaches, she's not on this, but who currently teaches 6th grade she had a little baby, and so she's taking next year off, and then she'll decide from there what she wants to do. So that's that. We had to do some shifting of some people in order to make that work within. And as you know, we did reduce a staff member, but because of Sheila taking the year, we didn't have to end up riffing anyone, which was a nice added bonus to that. We also transferred our special educator over to Founders, Andy DeHaan, and so Wendy can touch on him in a little bit. In terms of new hires, we have an algebra teacher this year that's shared between us as well as ADL. Daniel Petrilia, who currently teaches 7th grade, or actually 8th grade math at EMS. and was also our algebra teacher this year. She'll be doing that now for both schools. She'll be at EMS in the morning, and then ADL late morning into early afternoon, and then actually bouncing back and forth from ADL to EMS in the afternoons every other day, blue-white kind of thing. And then we have, so Danielle's position became open. We hired a gentleman named Ryan Farron, who currently teaches at Lamoille Middle School. He's been there for, I think, 5 years. Terrific guy. He's a forward thinker in terms of the personalized learning. He's actually one of their leaders of that. He's a member of middle grade institutes. He's done a lot of presentations with Lindsay Hallman, who's one of our leaders around personalized learning. So it was really exciting to get to land someone of Ryan's caliber. So we're very excited. So as you know, we did have to merge the Edge team in with the Nova team with the 8th graders. Although a difficult decision, it is the right decision, and it's people are already getting kind of excited about it within the building. I was talking with someone today, and they said, yes, the Edge, they were the leaders when we started talking about personalized learning and started talking about project-based learning. And they said, well, isn't it neat how it's happening all over the building right now? And it's really cool to see what that has had transferred out to the masses, if you would. Tomorrow morning, I actually am going to be a part of the Delta Learning Community or Learning Day, our morning, which would be wonderful to be a part of. And in there, you will see that real hands to learning type of product, which will be great to see. So stick to this, Mark. You want to go
Why don't
on?
you stick the whole, why don't you just finish up with your thoughts, reflections of the year?
Oh, that was it. No. What am I the most proud of? I'm most proud of my staff. Most proud of the fact that we are in the midst of a merge. And somebody today made a comment about being nervous. There was a comment, and it wasn't the staff, but there was a comment from the outside that people must be nervous. Actually, no. The students aren't nervous. The teachers aren't nervous. They're really excited about it. So I'm most pleased with the fact that the staff is very open to that. I'm extremely pleased that the staff have taken it upon themselves to already meet with Albert E. Lawton School in Westford. They've already done that. So science folks have already worked together. Language arts folks have already worked together. Math folks have already worked together. So there's this excitement versus this nervousness, which is just wonderful to have in the building. Yes, it's chaotic, but that would happen no matter where on the last week of school. But it's just been it's been a real pleasure to be a part of that fresh. It feels like a freshness to it, so it's exciting. The other question that Mark talked about us answering was kind of where we have grown over the past handful of years, and it's interesting. For myself, I'm certainly a different leader than I was 7 years ago. Certainly a different educator than I was 25 years ago when I first stepped foot in teaching special education. So it's been great. And I'll use Mark as an example of what he has brought to me since it's our last night here together. But it's interesting because somebody emailed us around Mark being a mentor and what would you give for advice. And then I got an email today from somebody and they wanted me to give a little quote about Mark. And I would definitely, for me, and what I've grown and what I've learned from Mark over the past 7 years is Stephen Covey's work, which is to listen to understand versus, before you, like seek, right? I'm trying to think of what it is, Mark, but seek first to understand, right? So he has brought about this need to listen and to check assumptions and to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think over the course of the 7 years, and I look forward to the next handful more that I have, actually almost 2 handfuls of years left, is that it's just under 2 handfuls, is I won't mention this year's kindergarten class is my leaving class. But anyways, is that message, is what I learn over the past 7 years, and and I think I actually lay a lot of that onto Mark and the leadership, and a sign of a good leader is that it's going to continue, and that will definitely continue. So I thank Mark for that, and that's it. All right.
I can almost ditto that. I didn't need notes, I could just copy you.
I usually copy you.
Lots of changes at Founders,
I know you
lots
went
of
first.
changes. I had to write this down to make sure I didn't forget anybody. So we have lots of changes at Founders next year in terms of professional staff. We hired 3 new 5th grade teachers. One of those teachers was an added position due to increased enrollment in 5th grade. We hired Sarah Hayek. They all have interesting names, hard to pronounce, but I figured it out. Sarah Hayek, she's currently a 3-4 teacher in North Hero, but she also taught in Westford in a 1-2 grade for a year, and that was a long-term sub position. And when I spoke to Marcy, she said she would have hired her back in a minute had she had a position. She has a lot of knowledge around MTSS and responsive classroom, PLCs, very strong relationships with kids, everything that I'm always looking for in an educator. Then we have, and she's going to be teaming with Mr. Marriott and another new teacher, Angela Lett, spelled Lettre, pronounced Lett. So 2 new teachers on that team, and she's currently a 5th grade teacher in Lindenville. She's been there for since 2011, so 6 years. She'll be teaming with Andrea Francolangia, Mr. Marriott, and Miss Hayek. Then Erica DeVise, she's currently in Swanton, and she's been teaching 2nd grade, and she's had a wide array of teaching experiences, including overseas. Very strong connections with kids. She came in and they all came in and taught lessons for us, and her lesson happened to be on the value of spinners in the classroom. It was really timely and very well done. So it was quite timely. So kids started to write procedure opinion pieces on it. It was a really, really great lesson.
Well, you and Peter, wrote an opinion piece as well, the parents, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
It was kind of dull, because we did find a video online. Who sent us the video?
Well, I found one online, actually, and I sent it to Peter last night, and it was a spoof that teachers, faculty had put together on spinners. And the faculty was all mesmerized
at
by
the staff
spinners,
meeting.
and nothing was getting I'll send it on to you. We also hired a 4th grade teacher to replace. Nobody can replace Sue Miyamoto. Sue Miyamoto is retiring this year, and she'll be taking on the 4th grade position in her classroom next year. Where is she now? Getting them all mixed up. She's at Twinfield Union, and she's taught 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. She's been there since 2014. She's going to be teaming with Andrew DeHond, who's coming over from EMS. I'm very excited about having Andrew back. He was here for a year, covering for a long-term sub for Kay Hahn when she was out for a while. I don't know if you remember Kay. So he's returning to Founders. Very excited to have him back. And Chelsea will be teaming with him and Mr. Powell and Mr. White on the 4th grade team. Who else? Christy Soul, we hired her as special educator. We did reduce our numbers, our instructional assistant numbers. Actually, one of them was just called back to EMS. Correct?
Yes, maybe. Did you call her?
Yes, I talked to her.
Then she's called back.
And so Christy Soul has been working as a special ed consultant. She's a special educator, but she's working in a consultant position for Chittenden East Supervisory Unit for about 12 years now. I actually worked with her pretty closely when I was a special educator in Chittenden East. She comes to us with a really strong inclusive philosophy, which ties really nicely in with our co-teaching model for next year. She not only has a strong philosophy, but has the skills necessary to help her colleagues even understand how to effectively differentiate and provide multi-level curriculum and curriculum overlapping for kiddos with intensive needs, particularly students with behavioral challenges. So she's got a lot of really awesome skills. So she'll be here in the fall working with the multi-age team. Who am I missing?
Language pathology.
We also hired Patty Diminick is retiring as our speech therapist after 28 years, I think. And instead of hiring another full-time SLP, we hired an SLP assistant who is, her name is Jenna Campbell. And I believe she's currently in Chittenden Central already, so she's working as an SLPA in CCSU. So she'll be working with us next year, and PJ Neverett, our other one full-time speech therapist, will be supervising her. So that's all the staff changes, I think. What am I most proud of? It's funny because whenever we do these things, you guys, we always end up saying very similar things. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of here at Founders in the last 3 years is the change I've seen in our culture and our climate. We've brought on some amazing new staff as well. So some new blood sometimes shakes things up a little bit, and our culture is really changing. And you know, we have an incredibly talented staff. I love working with them every day. They really raise the bar for kids, and I just enjoy working with them. And I'm proud that the culture has changed in a positive way. Still have work to do. We're moving in the right direction for sure. And I have plans next year to put together a climate team, including students. So getting a little more student voice out there next year and putting a smaller group of kiddos together to hear what they have to say about our climate and our culture. So I'm excited about the changes in culture here. How have I grown as a leader? I almost want to ditto what you just said, you know, that I've learned to listen more. Peter and I are involved in the Waddington Leadership Initiative. I don't know if you know much about that, but it's a leadership through the Creative Center for Leadership. Oh, I got it. And we've done lots of self-assessments and climate surveys with our staff, and really have learned a lot about ourselves as leaders and where our flaws are as well as where our strengths are. And I think as a leader for me in the last 3 years, I've grown to be much more reflective and listen more, particularly since we've been doing some of the leadership work. I've learned so much from Mark. Mark was my principal 17 years ago, my first principal for 5 years, and I learned a lot from him then as a principal. It's killing me that he's leaving. And I've just, you know, he is people first, and that's my greatest hope as we move forward with the merger, is that we remain as such. Working with this leadership team, I've learned the value and the power in all of us being on the same page and working together in a positive way, and really just keeping kids first and foremost all the time. And my greatest hope is that we don't lose that as we become bigger. I'm confident that we won't. But I love working with all of you guys. You're awesome. I'm gonna miss you like crazy, Mark. You are a consummate professional and a true joy as a leader. I've learned a lot from you.
Stop.
That's it. I'm gonna cry. if
That's
I
what I
say
said.
more.
Stop.
Okay.
See, we keep each other in check. And you said it well, Kim, you know, when you were talking with the board, how we keep each other, you know, we check each other and we raise the bar for each other. I'm not quite done. But, you know, we raise the bar for each other and we learn from each other. So, okay, you can go now.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we don't have we don't have a boatload of change as they did here at Founders. If any of you have been by the elementary school recently, you may have noticed that Brianne Heaslip is pregnant, quite possibly having a baby right now. This will be her second child, always brilliantly timed to to right in mid-June. I mean, last year, the last baby, I think she had the day after school got out. So she's just a consummate professional. So,
Last week of school.
yeah,
Had her baby on the playground.
suddenly it's a science class. So, coming in and she is taking a 1-year leave of absence. So coming in to replace Bree is a woman named Kim Horton, who was the school counselor in Westford for 9 years, and then left there. She had some transitions with her children were going into high school and so she left and is now looking to get back in. Westford clearly thought the world of her because they hired her as a mentor for their incoming school counselor. She is a yoga instructor. She has a tremendous amount of knowledge about mindfulness, which I am very interested in tapping into, both personally and professionally. So again, I think she's gonna be a fabulous addition. Susie Miller retired, but the good news is we have, again, from Westford, poor Marcy. She must be like, you guys, come on. Emily Grimes is coming over. She's just finishing up a 1-year long-term sub in Westford as their preschool and special educator at the early ed level. She is dual certified as a preschool teacher and as an early ed special educator. So she will bring in just a huge amount of knowledge and great perspective, particularly as we move into co-teaching. She will understand both sides of that fence, I think, which is going to be really important at our preschool level. Next we have, like these guys, like Wendy anyway, we reduced our instructional assistants in order to hire another special educator named Jennifer King. Jennifer is coming to us from St. Albans. She has been a special educator for 1 year in St. Albans, and then before that she had a variety of different roles in special ed and in working with children with special needs, from a 504 coordinator to an intensive needs paraeducator, and also has 8 or 10 years of classroom experience as a first grade teacher. So she will be working in our first grades with Gilly. We are reforming our teams. So we're going to have, we will have one special educator who will be dedicated to our kindergarten class, 2 special educators whose work will focus on first grade, 2 whose work will focus on second grade, and then 1 who will be working with intensive needs children. The idea being that it's a great sort of segue into co-teaching. So we're going to be moving some people around the building in order to put them in the pods where they will be working. So that's exciting. The last hire we have, Jenky Snedeker, is retiring after many, many years of service. And filling those shoes is a woman named Mary Kate Spillane. And this is a story that I just love because Mary Kate is a 2011 graduate from St. Mike's. We hired her in January of 2013 as a one-on-one assistant. She is a certified teacher, obviously, but she came in as a one-on-one, and just quickly, I mean, it was so clear how strong a teacher she is and how she develops these wonderful relationships with kids. And she took on some of the most challenging roles in the building. And every time a position opened up as a classroom teacher, Mary Kate applied and interviewed, and then we had that conversation that was just so awful where I said, I'm sorry. maybe 6 or 7 times over the course of the years that she was with us. But every time she came back to me and said, what do I need to do? And she not only worked with her kids, she worked with her classroom teachers. She studied them. She watched what they were doing. She was in some phenomenal classrooms. And every classroom she was in, she just stole, ruthlessly stole everything she could from those teachers. And then she started doing some long-term subs for us and stepped into some pretty difficult situations with very little notice. And she's one of these people, everything that we have asked her to do, she has done phenomenally well. And when Janky took a leave this year, she stepped into that classroom and was just remarkable. And so finally, we got to sit down in my office and say yes, and it was so exciting. So I couldn't be happier for us, and I couldn't be happier for her. That is it for our staffing changes. I'm just going to speak for these guys really quickly. They don't know it, but one of the things that has made a huge difference for us, each of us have come from schools prior to this. We've come from school districts prior to this. And each of us, if we sit down and start to chat about our previous experiences, we start to talk about things like, the time that I was at a school board meeting and the music schedule was on the agenda. And I was like, excuse me? What? And then the music teacher showed up because she didn't like the music schedule. So one of the things that has been huge for all of us has been the way Mark has helped and the board has helped keep yourselves here and let us deal with the music schedules and all of that here. It has, you really can't know what a difference that makes in a principal's life, to not have to worry about, anytime I saw any one of you in the building, there was never oh dear, what is this about? And
Well, now you're
that,
speaking for yourself.
I am speaking for myself. Now I am. I was speaking for Wendy, I don't know. But it's made a huge difference in our lives, and I can tell you we really appreciate it, and we appreciate Mark's leadership in that. As far as what am I most proud of, I'm tremendously proud about a lot of stuff that we have done here over the years, particularly since Mark came on board. I guess if I had to pick the one thing, it would be the professional learning communities, which we talked about as a leadership team. We brought back to our staffs and talked about it. We brought it back. It was really the epitome of sort of shared decision making and shared leadership and discussion. And at Essex Elementary School, when I started there, one of the sentiments that I heard often was that we've had so much leadership change, both at the building level and at the district level, that we don't know what the next thing is going to be. Every time a leader comes in, they have the next thing. And so the new superintendent comes in and then they have the next, and then the principal comes in and she's got the next thing. So we're just sort of ping-ponging around. And when we started talking about professional learning communities, my promise to the staff was, we do this right, and it doesn't matter where I go, because the person who comes in after me, you don't say, what are you bringing? You say, this is what we do. How do you contribute? And I really feel like that's where we're at right now, that there is no going back. And that springs out of my biggest learning, which again comes from Mark, which is when you empower the right people to make decisions, and you give the right guidance, and you set up the right parameters, and you have the right people looking at the right issues, particularly in education, 99% of the time they are going to make the right decision and they're going to find the right course of action. And that to me is huge, because the job of principal will make you crazy if you don't allow people to help you do it. And it's not just a matter of people helping you, it's a matter of we are running this together. You guys are the ones who know, you know way more about curriculum, you know way more about your units, you know way more about assessment. We could go down the list. And empowering those people to make those decisions has been huge. And then constantly checking in with each other about where we're at, how is it going, what needs tweaking, what needs fine tuning, what is the message we're going to bring back to folks has been enormous. And for me, it really comes down to, I really feel like if I left tomorrow, they would interview somebody and say, what do you bring that helps us do what we're doing right now? So that would be what I am most proud of. And I'm done.
I do have one more staff member.
I do too.
They're one up and you
Wait a
know.
Kelsey Mead is going to be taking
Yes.
maternity leave at the beginning of the school year for 2 months. So Julie Garino will, who's been a long-term sub here multiple times, she will be taking on her role at the beginning of the school year. Okay. Now I'm done.
Awesome. Do you have anything for Dylan?
Peter have a growth thing?
Dylan has one. He has Colette in
Do you
view.
have a growth thing?
Colette, who currently works at all 3 of our schools with our intensive needs students, trying to create plans, behavior plans with them. She'll be BCBA certified, and she'll be working with all 3 schools still, doing the same thing, but just with a title.
She'll be training
Should be getting
training
paid
the
more.
And she'll get-
instructional assistants.
And she works really closely with the IAs.
What is BCBA?
I knew somebody was going to ask that.
I did too.
It's a SMART goal.
It is.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Peter, how do you spell smart?
What is it, Peter? Behavior?
BCBA.
Behavior?
We don't know exactly.
No.
Okay,
Behavioral
that's
analysis.
It's something
Behavior.
around
Behavioral
behavior though,
policy.
right?
So
A
we
behavior
have a
specialist.
student who's exhibiting significant behaviors in an ongoing way. She'll come in and observe and do something called a functional behavior assessment, and so sort of try to get at what the function of the behavior is and help with plans, support the instructional assistant, the classroom teacher, special educator often, in helping that student to be successful.
That's the only one I can think of that's cross 3. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I have one.
Hey there. So I get to share after these guys?
Well,
That's kind
it
of
is
a
the-
little daunting. at
You
this
saved
point.
the best for last, Ellen, how's that?
Yeah, so it must be or last woman standing, shall we say.
It's the Ellen Thompson
She
School District,
persisted.
TSD.
Oh! If it only could be so. I didn't even think of that.
Very nice.
So I have a lot of things that I'm really proud of about the district. I think I've been here 11 years, 7 with Mark and 4 with Jim. And I think both superintendents offered things that they were really interested in. Jim being very techie and just actually loving to play with everything. He just loved all the technology. And he always giggled his whole way through it, so he was really fun with that, which actually impacted my job. So I mean, that became a big part of my job. And then Mark, being more of what I would call an instructional leader. So he was one who was walking the walk, so to speak, making sure he was in the classrooms, kind of listening to people, trying to get the feel of the district. And then very studied, Mark is. Jim liked to play with things, Mark liked to study, but so they're a little bit different. But I think for me, I don't know which area I'm in. I'm probably in growing as a leader at this point, but I learned from Mark. I mean, I think I always was a studied person, but that idea of being really present in the moment, being able to listen, I think everybody said that too, to try to listen to what the teachers in the field were telling us or showing us in some different ways, and then beginning to think about how you can distribute the leadership roles to other folks other than yourself. So maybe starting out a little more contained and being, I think, more distributive as I've gotten older. I think that's a really important piece of it. So that idea of supporting teacher leadership. And that goes back to what I'm most proud of, because I've worked with the most amazing group of teachers within 4 curriculum areas, actually more than that, but 4 are the ones that get evidence the most: social studies, science, math, and ELA. And these are very, very bright teachers. But one of the things, and I was doing that right from the get-go, from the first year, but one of the things Mark kind of pushed me into was this idea, if you're gonna have a committee, what's their purpose, what's their role? Do they just sit around and do stuff, or do they just, hang out? What do they do? And so between Mark and myself, really becoming really clear about the fact, no, if we're gonna have a vertical team of teachers, they have to actually become the experts and they have to become the decision makers. And so I think that was a pivotal change that probably began to happen 6 years ago, more so than not. And so for me, I struggle with losing those groups of people because I won't be working with them next year, but knowing that they are extremely smart. They worked really, really hard. They did all the work on our curriculum implementation, supporting their colleagues and being the go-to people in their buildings. They made the decisions about how our assessment plan moved or shifted. It was not a building-based decision. It was something that went back to the K-8. Same with social studies, one of my favorite groups. They didn't even have new standards coming down the pike. They just said, our stuff is old and we need to do something. So they came forward even before Common Core and other things too. So I'm really, really proud of them, for sure. The other piece I'm really proud of, probably started with Jim, was the technology integration and not being afraid to like jump out, get on the deep end of the pool a little bit sometimes. And I think we have led the region, our district has, with the amounts of technology we use and how we use technology, not as a game, but as a tool. And so I think that's been a really important part. And again, those are both halves of my job right now as it stands at the moment. For me, I would say, like, growing as a leader, the listening piece is a big one. I think the other part, and I know I did this before, but I think it became even more clear to me, that this idea of being current in the moment, and when you're asking people to do work with you, you do the work with them. So it isn't about telling and, handing out the jobs kind of stuff, but it's actually the idea of sitting down at the table and becoming as knowledgeable as they are and listening to how they work on it. Right now, I'm completely overwhelmed, not overwhelmed, but just immersed is a better word, in the new website development. So we're stripping 2 websites. That's probably not the best word, but anyway, we're looking at 2 websites. We're creating a 3rd, and we've been at the table a lot, just trying to make sense of how 2 different organizations present themselves, so that how does a new organization do it, not old or new. And it's been really exciting work, but we're really deep in it, and we've got a deadline. We reveal to the teachers on the 20th, so we're really cooking on that one. Cooking with gas, is that the phrase? I usually mix up all of my things. The things I hope for with the merger, I think I piggyback on what Wendy said. I think one of the things that I would say that people know about us as Essex Town is that we're really hands-on, that people are more generalists than they are. They're very smart people, but we tend to do a lot of multiple jobs. So it isn't like I only know this one bucket of information. I actually have about 15. But anyway, so people don't have to try to figure out who that other person is. So we're more relational, and I don't want to say more, but we're relational in the fact that multiple questions can be answered by the same person. And then you can begin to see how that work affects all those other things as well. So the idea that we hold on to some of that smallness as we get bigger, and I worry about it, but I'm hopeful about it a lot. And then the other piece I wanted to just say was that I'm really, 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 really hope that we carry into the merge with us the idea of being trendsetters and out in the front. I'm really nervous about the largeness of 2 organizations coming together, and we'll lose that nimbleness that we had to say, it's time to try something new. Let's do it, and let's agree on it. Let's go for it. So I'm just hoping we can keep that, and whether it's personalization, flexible pathways, or any other word that people want to put on it, but this idea of not wanting status quo, the always wanting to push the envelope, I think is really, really important. And right now is our best time to do it because we are new. We are brand new at this moment, and that's what I want people to go into the merge with. We are not ETSD, we are not EW, we are not CCSU. We're something brand new, and we haven't even built it yet. So, sorry, that was my speech.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just, Peter, you want to say?
Well, I just realized I didn't talk about my hopes for the merger, which I'd like to sort of quickly, and then it's not so much a hope as it is a determination that, you always think large and impersonal, But my determination is that we are large, but we are incredibly
Right.
personal and personable, and
So,
that that what we have created here in terms of the distributed leadership, the sitting and talking and listening, that we bring that with us into this new organization, which I think is being very, very much welcomed there. And the reason I say it's not a hope, because I always think of a hope as, that would be nice. It's a determination.
Is that what Comey said?
This is just a
couldn't
determination.
Okay.
I think we've got what we have created is just phenomenal, and I intend to see it continue.
Yeah. Well said.
Thanks. If Dylan was here, he'd do a much better job sharing his reflections than I'm going to do, reading them off a piece of paper. But again, he's probably standing up in front of 20 aspiring leaders as we speak. So he's only been here 18 months, of course, but in the past 18 months, he's developed a much better appreciation and understanding of the collaborative leadership structure that does exist here, and all means all. That we're really clear about. He's become very appreciative of being clear about where is it all gets to decide, and where's that decision rest, and that's pretty well defined, more so than he understood when he accepted the job. He also wanted to point out, as Peter did, the appreciation of how the board governs, and his experience, again, in other districts were unlike the one he's experienced here in terms of just being able to not be cluttered with things that are being asked of him to do by multiple board members, and he's really appreciated that. What he's most proud of is the movement towards a more true and meaningful special education delivery model. There's been a number of fairly big changes that we've basically, as a new guy, asked him to do. And sometimes that happens through attrition, but it was in his head and his heart, and he had the hands and the knowledge to do it. So reducing the reliance on a specialized PE program, for example, to serve kids with more severe disabilities. He's proud of that. He brought in, with the help of the leadership team, some pretty rich training around the co-teaching model, and he's really encouraged by, again, building leadership and teachers for their support of moving in that direction, and the less reliance on hiring people to support kids with more intensive needs and being more inclusive in that regard. And what he's hoping for in a merged district, and I think we've all heard about it. It is not about necessarily the size. It's about, do we have common purpose and a common vision for what's worth fighting for. And he's hoping that, as Ellen just expressed, that we don't back away from, pushing that agenda forward. Not our agenda, but what do we believe in this new unified union in terms of outcomes for kids. And because we haven't had a chance to talk about that a whole lot as respective leadership teams, we naturally are going to be worried about we're going to miss it, or miss that opportunity, but I don't think we will. And I'll share some of that when I do my goal rollout later on this evening. Thanks, Dylan, for your crib notes. And I did not embellish.
Can I add another Dylan piece, though? In his 18 months, this is our second year doing the summer program together, so the Building Bridges summer program.
Thank you. He mentioned that as an example.
And last year when he came in, in previous years, it had been sort of 3 different programs. There was sort of a special ed program, there was an intensive needs program, and then I brought in sort of a regular ed tier 2 program, and had always talked about trying to figure out how to do it, but it just never happened. But with Dylan, he was really, he really pressed that issue, and so last year we became much more integrated. This year there is one program this summer, and all kids are in an inclusive environment. Some kids are supported a little bit more than others, and there are alternate places where people can be, but everybody will be together. There is only one program. And I think for me, because it will be my last year doing summer school, should I start crying now? But anyway,
Careful what you ask for.
I know, that's why I got it this year. But it's been 4 years, and I'm really pleased, because it was always awkward to me. My background is a special educator and a classroom teacher, and so to have them be separate never felt right, but I didn't have the mechanism in order to get it together. So I just really am glad that in the 4 years that I did it, that we got it to that stage. So.
He's made some tough calls,
Mhm.
you know, and with kids always in mind. And I love working with Dylan. He really gets it.
Well, I think you hope you can appreciate that the reason we're going to be successful as a unified union is that we've got 4 and 1 at St. Mike's leaders who I think, along with our colleagues in Chittenden Central, are committed to having that deeper dialogue, that deeper conversation about what's worth fighting for. And I know that I speak for my colleagues there that that will happen at some point. Beth, I think one of the things first thing out of the gate is have people come to the table and not just talk about policies and procedures, but go deeper into the conversation about what's good for kids. And I know that there's a commitment to do that. But I so much appreciate as well your I guess interest in continuing to grow professionally and what are the lessons learned. And this is just really helpful, I think, to cap off a great year, but also our experience working together as a team and the support that we've received from the board has made that happen.
Can you, I don't know if this is, can you do a fourth thing here, central office? What is happening to people in central office, do we know, and is that an okay topic for?
Sure. And what's happening to them?
Who's leaving, who's replacing?
Ellen keeps saying she's not gonna do this, she's not gonna do that, she's not gonna do this. I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
Obviously, central office is going through a bigger change than the buildings, because the
Well,
buildings are still
there's-
going to have teachers and kids
Yeah.
and principals, and
I
but
think
the
they're
offices are
feeling it more
merging.
than anybody else has
Yeah.
done, and it's. Thanks for asking, and I chose not. No one, Roger and I are the only ones leaving. Won't be working here next year. I assume everyone else is coming back. Some are going to have similar jobs. Some are going to have jobs that are quite different. But everyone has a job, and over the course of next year, Beth and her team with the board is going to have to look at whether or not this transition structure that we have, because we have 2 central offices, what's the vision? Is there going to be 1 central office, which I think we all would advocate for? Then where are the human resources needed to run that program? I can tell you that there is a decision that's been made that the educational component of the new UU will be housed at 58 Founders Road. Ellen and Amy and Aaron and Dylan and their assistants, and Lorna and Johanna. And Beth will share an office, probably with Brian Donahue, and they'll share an office, probably my office. They'll tag team during the week, and then and Beth will tag team down on Park Street until such time as an office is found. And because all these leadership positions are really important, but I don't think Ellen would necessarily would need to live at Park Street as well. I think it's important that she's surrounded by educational leaders. Brian needs to be in both camps, as does Beth.
I want them right across the parking lot.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that
I want you.
the educational component is much more
I'm really excited
public.
about where
We're
we-
way more people. We're going to be registering preschool. We're going to have preschool functions there, volunteers, and so Park Street is more HR and business. So it's not a place. It's a happy place, but it's not a place that a lot of people probably will need to go. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful. But
Yeah, that does help.
So thanks very much, you guys. I know it's one more night out for you guys. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah. Well done.
Thanks for the brownies.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll figure out how to keep our smallness.
Thank you.
It's on my mind
You're
too.
gonna have a great Head Start teacher at the school too. Liz is fabulous.
Thank you guys for feeling
New Head Start, Liz.
share so far.
Liz is incredible. I've worked with her on numerous occasions. She's fabulous and excited to be here. So cool.
Thank you. We're meeting next week. No. You coming? You're always fun to have around, you guys.
I'm proud of the day we hired Peter. How's that? I was here.
Long time ago.
What?
Maybe
But I'm
he
still
dates
proud of
me. I
it.
think I was just a mom here at the time.
See you guys, Mark. See you soon, right? All right. Thanks.
Well, I make the motion then that we accept the superintendent's policy monitoring. Oh, wait.
No,
It's not included in all of it. Never mind.
I don't think
Should
we have
read
an
further.
action,
don't
right?
need
Just
it.
No,
statement
no,
of
just an
intention.
update.
I gotta go down.
Yeah,
Never
yep,
mind.
yep.
Never mind. I'll wait then, Mark. Go ahead.
She's getting excited for this.
I
Well,
Well,
no,
I-
I just.
I was just going to
I
say
know.
that I think Mark and I have said probably more than once as we sat together to do whatever. I think there was this thought that the local boards were just going to be sort of cruising this year,
Yeah.
or that take the foot off the gas, or there were some of those words used that would help shift the work to the unified district. And I think the way Mark's always done work has always been unifying, and it didn't need to be that we no longer did this version of work because we were unifying. And so it never felt that way to the two of us. I appreciate that we've been able to put a lot in one meeting a month. But the other piece that I think we've both said a lot is that there'll be a time, not even just this year that we said it, but that there'll be a time that it's not either one of us sitting here. And I heard in all of them the appreciation for the support to have developed in a way they feel that they know the people around them are positioned to do their work the way they've been doing it because it's the right work and the right people. And so, Mark, you have clearly done that, as we've heard from them. I think we've always wanted to create sort of the model we would wish to continue, and so that's why we haven't taken our feet off the gas, guys. That's why we've kept doing the monitoring and the reflection on what's important for kids and are we getting there. And it's a really important model to me, whatever it's called, when we take up that conversation again as a unified board over the summer. It's important work. I heard the power in it with these guys. I will just say we're so grateful that that's the way you've led. Because
Thanks, and it's going to take a number of years to reestablish that the new team. It doesn't happen overnight.
But I love the thought that it's contagious. Like at this point, I feel like it's really ingrained in the work they do.
Yes.
And it was not, like Peter said, it's not hope, it's determination. And it's and there's like a reason to believe it's possible because there's nobody who's doing the version of work they're doing that would do it differently. So it's not like being stubborn and I'm not going to try something different. It's that whatever the flavor is, we can do it in this context. And it really takes folks like, this really worked well kind of thing. So.
Thank you. Sorry, guys.
So,
Take time.
thank you. But you're right. You're a patient man, and I am trying to be patient. So.
But I can tell you that our new colleagues are just can't wait.
Yeah.
Their jaws drop when we talk about how our narrative is going to help in a big way influence the next district. It really will. So it's never been about size. It's about what you believe. And, So thanks for it. It was longer than what we had planned.
We were ahead of schedule.
was
Still the
also
brownies,
just-
so let's go. There's more brownies.
It's just a great opportunity for them as well to be able to have public opportunity to share their growth. And I think you heard that tonight. So 2.1, I added a few things. I must say that I maybe apologized a little bit that I didn't put a lot of time. I took some things off and I put some new things in I thought that were important. Kim made a suggestion to me, and I haven't followed up yet, Kim, to maybe it would be instructive perhaps for Beth and the new board and the leadership team to see some of these monitoring reports, at least over the last school year, rather than sort of demystify what is policy governance. Ooh. But when I was doing 2.1, I could have had 9 pages of things here in terms of how I can be clear with students and guardians and parents around how things will operate here. And that's what 2.1 is all about. So I put in red.
Thank you for doing
I
that.
think,
We
again,
do love that.
I'm so glad to change it.
We have finally gotten so good at this. You sure you're not
And
there?
I'd be glad to pull this up if you have questions about it.
So whenever Lorna has a moment to breathe, and Mark and I remember to do it, I think we are going to ask her to put together a binder of all of our policies and the most current monitoring reports for all 4 sets of them. And I think we'll probably do a couple of them just because Martha's also not familiar with policy governance, and as the chair, I think we can have a conversation about what this looks like and decide if she thinks it's valuable, not because we would take these policies, but rather to see what it looks like in action and the process, and what monitoring means when I talk about monitoring, or how are we going to be accountable to outcomes, or all the other words.
It was funny during the carousel meeting in the various groups, and I'd bring up policy governance, and their faces just like, huh?
Yeah, it's wonky, but the executive limitations, these they are a little wonky, but they're a little bit more easily understood than the board's monitoring reports. We get it, but it's hard to sort of unpack
Yeah.
to really
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
what that means. So is there a way in your governance policies to really better describe what it is that you're trying to achieve?
And I
that's
think
where I think
where we're adding more interpretation
Yeah.
within it, because
Right.
I think that just, it helps us to understand what are the goals of this, and
Yeah.
the monitoring reports speak a whole lot more than, I remember getting the Reinvent the Board book
Yeah.
and trying to get through that, and that doesn't,
No.
and even, it's, you almost have to be a part of it for a while to
Yeah.
truly feel
Yeah.
you understand.
And then just when you are, like, you think, wow, that could have been written better or differently. And I do think, actually, just because I'll periodically get calls from folks at Chittenden East or in Burlington trying to get their heads around this because they're, taking this on, and have a cup of coffee and be able to sort of share what we're doing. And some of them, Burlington especially, is in their writing their policies mode, and they're looking at the sample policies that are around. And when we started this, we had basically, like, some of them, the ends we didn't take in their entirety, and we didn't take any of them, just absorb them, but rather we did take a look at them, and if we couldn't find a real compelling reason to change the model language that we had, we were kind of like, okay, that probably makes sense, it's saying about what we want, but I'm not sure that being that young in our process that we could know whether or not, what does that really mean? And I think it'd be, even if we weren't merging, I think it would have been time for us to just have made sure that with whatever else is out there, and does this make sense, and is this really getting at what we're thinking of? So I would be excited about that possibility too, to consider that as a model of governance. But again, not just taking our stuff, but looking at all the stuff that's out there right now and really thinking about it with an open mind. I don't know what will happen with that, but I would want folks to understand that we were kind of young in this, and we would have wanted to take a look at these ourselves if we weren't changing.
So, I can go through the entire report. I think it speaks for itself, some of the additions that I put. I want to, just one piece of full disclosure on the last page. If you looked at last year's report 2.1, the last bullet on the last, under subsection 4, I had stated in my last report, and it was born out of the moving to jump rope at the middle school. We didn't do a very good job at all in terms of talking about the why we're making the change to a standards-based reporting system. And one of the collateral issues that became pretty apparent quickly is that parents didn't really understand what it is they were reading. Moreover, what made it even worse is teachers had a hard time explaining what they were reading. So one of the things that I had committed to was to have a survey developed by the leadership team and teachers to put out to our parent groups, not only middle school but K-8, to recalibrate sort of like our system. And under the advice of Amy Cole and Ellen Thompson and principals, because they weren't ready to do that, it just seemed like it would have been maybe a false start if we went out and gathered data from our parents without doing it in collaboration with Chittenden Central. So there's a commitment on part of the leadership team to do the report, to start having those report card discussions next year. So instead of that, we developed some oral scripts that some teachers, many didn't need, but during the formal conversations with parents or guardians, a better way to talk about what the report card means and what it doesn't mean. So I just wanted to.
Good.
You might, if you looked at last year's report, I didn't know if you were going to come in waiting to see, well, Mark, where was the survey? Full disclosure. Didn't do it.
And
For
you
good
still-
reason.
And it is true, you still hear middle school parents,
You
and
do.
even just younger parents trying to understand, what
Yeah.
does that mean for my child?
That's right.
And still that confusion around 3, well, what does that really mean? And how does that change throughout the year? Not understanding that it's the levels, what the expectations of what they're doing is changing throughout
And
the year.
it really is.
hard.
It is not so much a pre-K, but it is a K-12 conversations as we move to proficiency-based grading at the high school, which is a very transformative policy that the board has adopted. We had to by state law, but that really is going to transcend all of the stuff that we've been used to, and it really isn't just 9-12. It really is a K-12 conversation, so it makes sense to go out together and have that engagement opportunity with parents and students.
I was glad to see that that letter went out on the school lunch breakfast program too, so that Because people had concerns about that, so that was
Yeah.
good.
Good. I didn't get any feedback on
Some people did have questions about how smooth that transfer, like the
Yeah, it's
transfer
happening
of the
this week.
funds.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's smooth
So
sailing.
if there's any problems, I'm sure we'll hear. Somebody will
Somebody
hear.
will hear.
Somebody will
Someone
hear.
Who's gonna hear it? It'll be in the duck bucket.
Someone.
Oh, that'll
Player
be
to
in
be
the Brian
named
bucket.
later, no.
He's been here a week now.
that. That concludes my remarks.
So, I make the motion that we accept policy title 2.1 as presented with corrections and changes.
Were there corrections and
Were
changes?
Well, he's fixed that last line. he
Oh, but
Oh,
no, it's
no,
just,
it
it's
was
just,
from
it's
last
just calling
year.
attention
Yeah.
to that, Dawn.
said. Okay, all right, with changes.
Actually, unless you want me to, there are no changes.
Yeah,
unless-
it's just
as
presented.
presented.
As
As
presented.
presented.
The red
All
just draws our
right.
attention.
See, I can't write and talk, I guess.
I know,
All right.
it's hard.
That is so uncommon for Dawn to
right, I
get
got
the
it.
motion.
I got it. As presented.
We are lifelong learners here.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? No. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes 5-0.
I'm up.
I have to say I'm
Thank you,
excited
Reformer.
about the new website
Yes.
and what that might potentially be.
I know.
You know, when we
Yeah.
think about communication with parents and
Yeah.
They've been working hard.
That's-
Yeah.
that's an exciting thing. I'm really
Yeah.
ready for
This is the
that.
same you
I
sent,
missed
right?
you,
Yeah, it's-
and I
it's-
didn't
Is this an
get-
update, Dan?
it's almost identical to what I sent out. With
Okay.
a very, very,
Oh,
very,
okay.
very minor change.
Can we roll back to the agenda after two?
Really at the suggestion of Dawn. There's really not a whole lot of excitement here.
I opened my mouth again, didn't I? Sorry.
Not a whole lot of excitement here. We have been basically in or in substantial compliance for the last several years on this policy, and I saw no reason that anything had changed substantially. You know, as far as I think one of our main things is linkage. That's where we've all often been challenged. But I think we've done a good job. We didn't have very many meetings with outsiders this year because we didn't have to explain a budget. You know, we didn't have to. There was a lot of stuff that we didn't have to do this year. So I think the primary linkage with the community was with the new board to the community. There was a lot more interest there, a lot more reason for there to be meetings and interest in that level. Yet we still stayed in touch quite well with people. The Facebook thing, I think it's one of the neatest things that's developed, and I don't know if it was just this year or we started it last year, I believe, doing I'm pointing at you. 'Cause
Yeah.
you do it, you know, the three points on
points,
Facebook. That really helps me. Because
Yeah.
I get to the end of a meeting, I'm like, God, I'm tired. I want to go home.
What did we
Okay,
do?
what did we do? What did we actually do tonight? I think it's a really great exercise. Of course, Essex reporters continue to be very helpful to us. RITN is great.
You'll be happy
So-
to know we're doing the 3 takeaways at the EWSD meetings.
Oh, good. That's great. So maybe if that's something that they've
I've
adopted from us,
recommended them at the
fabulous.
VSBA meetings. I really like it. Cashel's a
Yeah, we-
trendsetter.
I think our most strict job is monitoring, and you know we did it. We modified our schedule, obviously to only do this once a month, but we didn't slack off on any of the reports. As far as if I'm recalling correctly,
We got 'em all
did
in
every
there,
report,
right? I'm pretty sure.
which I think is great. We didn't, as you say, just close our eyes and coast.
Coast.
We
I don't think
we're-
the other boards did either. I just think that there was anyway. I just want to make sure I'm not suggesting otherwise. But yeah, we stayed on it. In our
And-
version, we stayed on.
And the one thing that I did say, as far as number 4, negotiating teacher union contracts, I kind of wanted to say not applicable, and that's Don. You said, hey, we're in compliance. We didn't need to do it.
Right.
If you don't have to do it, you're not out of compliance. So I said, all right, yeah, we're in compliance. I'll take that.
We kind of did it, if I count.
Can we amend it to Kim is in compliance? So, like I say, not one of the more exciting reports I've ever put out. Not a whole lot of meat to it because we did our job.
It works.
We've gotten good at doing our job in 8 years of policy governance, 7 years with me on.
Well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So unless
Yeah.
there are questions or comments or thoughts,
Then
I
I,
will move that we
ahead.
approve policy 4.2 as presented.
very good.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Thank you, Dan. Your last monitoring report on this board. I'm just going to add that caveat.
yes, yeah, I'm starting a policy governance board at church in about 2 weeks.
Oh my
So-
God.
That is awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So as vice chair.
A role
Just can't get
Yeah, it is.
He
It is.
missed board work so
I
much.
feel very motherly about this. I feel very excited and proud. That's great. We're spreading the
Like
good.
Another one of your kids is graduating and moving on. Yeah.
It feels a little bit like that. With all due respect, because you have certainly been integral to us doing this. But boy, that's, it is kind of good to imagine how, what works can be shared. I think I always appreciate those opportunities. Cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My experience on this board has been already helpful with moving to that other board
Yeah.
because they're new at it, relatively.
Yeah.
So it's kind of exciting.
Spread the love.
Oh yeah.
All right. We voted, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, wait a minute.
Did we
John,
vote?
did we vote?
Think so.
5-0, I thought, right?
I have 5-0 written.
Good, perfect. You might have been ahead of us, but that's awesome. And then board code of conduct.
Which nobody could remember who was supposed to do, which is
Oops.
pretty funny. But anyway, I report that the board is in compliance without
Probably had that in my notes.
basically any changes. The only thing I changed was evidence. I added work on the merger of CCSU, Westford, and the Essex Town School Districts. And at the end, I added, it is the wish of this board that the new EWSD adopt the same code of conduct.
Makes sense.
Other than that, nothing changed. It's an awesome group.
Any further discussion, you guys? Any sort of back to it being boring and we got this?
Yeah.
Sliding out as experts.
Yeah.
It was fun doing
Yeah,
that.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we can see it at work in many places where there are elected officials, and it's really, really important. And I don't feel as though I can think of very few occasions where we haven't, sort of checked ourselves just to make sure that what we're doing as we go through is in keeping with our code of conduct and what we expect of each other as, respectful colleagues in this work. So that's.
I think a valuable thing, we have disagreed very, very few times.
Yeah.
But when we have, it's worked very well.
Yeah.
And-
And I think we've all learned
Yeah.
from those.
And the number of times that
Definitely.
we had a 3-2 or a 4-1 vote was relatively rare.
Yeah.
And yet I know that afterwards we have always said, the idea of, okay, here's our 5 opinions.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's the board's opinion. And that's what we
Yeah.
carry out
Yep.
with us.
Agreed.
And that's been,
Yeah. And I think, though, I hope it's always felt as though there's been space for conversation that allowed for the diverging opinions so that we could learn together where we go
mhm.
from there. And I don't recall that we've had 3-2 things that I've needed to go out and represent us in a certain way. I don't recall it with Brendan either. Like, I
Mhm.
think we've really been able to talk through and make sure we've asked the right questions and come to a position of resolve and decision that, Mark was able to provide us the information we needed to get there, and then really do what we're elected to do, is represent the folks and the informed decision making that we do here. So, okay.
And I think, we've worked well at having, once the discussion's done, there is one voice that goes forward. And I think, one with your leadership, so I keep going back to our meeting with the select board and how I really felt like we were a group and Kim was our voice. And it was just total confidence that Kim, as always, was very well prepared and able to represent us. But she was speaking for the board, and that we always can have worked that way, in a way that you don't see all the time.
Always.
And I think it's just been a very great experience in that way.
And that setting, it was nice when we did offer, when for whatever reason one of us had to speak up, it built the storyline. It wasn't, yeah, but Kim, no, wait a minute. It was,
Yeah.
and here's some more of
And we
how we're
weren't
all
at
on the same page.
all, I will say, I spent a lot of time gathering what we needed for that meeting, but it's not like we were rehearsed in it. It is just, I felt really confident with the way we do business, to know that even though we were inviting in another board where we had no authority over them, it was our meeting and having conversations just to make sure we knew how that would sort of happen between the two chairs. I didn't feel as though we had to worry if we were rehearsed or worry if we said something that I wasn't expecting or asked a question I wasn't anticipating. I was really glad that we had questions. It was the first time we were taking it up in that depth. And again, I have the utmost in confidence in our integrity in the work we do and our expectations for decorum and the way we operate. And so I'm grateful that you guys allow me to speak on our behalf, but the time spent preparing for that meeting, there wasn't like a split second that I spent worrying about how it was going to go for us. I really didn't, and I felt as though there's such integrity in the way we do our work that inviting another board to join us felt like we got this, and I would like for us to have the opportunity to be as thorough as it seemed others really were looking for. So I think that, like I said, I'm glad you guys have the confidence in me to be the voice, but I have that confidence because of all of us and because of what we do together, not because I would ever feel comfortable going out there just making assumptions. It never has felt like that. It has always felt where I wasn't sure that we knew where we were on things. I wanted to check with you guys, and then if you're good, I got it. But it was a pleasure inviting people into our process. And I did that with confidence because of you guys. So, anyway. Oh, I'm sorry.
I moved,
All right,
I'm
so I
sorry, our
don't think, do
usual-
we have any?
I
Somebody move it?
Nobody.
I move that we approve
right, Dawn is usually
policy monitoring report. Yeah, I know, that's the problem with you
She
doing the
wrote it.
monitoring report. You can't vote, or you can't. I move that we approve policy 4.0 monitoring report as presented.
Second.
4.5
Yes.
4.5.
as presented.
I heard Rachel
I'll
second.
second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. I will just start the 3.4 and say I've not written up the piece that we had done independently yet. Mark, always the third part of the process. I think Cashel had done our matrix. We had had our conversation
Yep.
using the tool that we had done for the 360 before, and Mark was going to share his goals. And so we can, after Mark does that, make sure it's either helpful to you that we write it up or that we've had the conversation, and see if there's still time for us to share that with you. Obviously not in a meeting, but usually we have just a sit down, a couple of us, to share with you feedback, and you can let us know whether that's valuable time for you at this point.
But I also know it's 12th of June.
Okay.
Look, we wanna meet-
Rub it in. He's rubbing it
How
in.
about definitely not this
I've
week?
got 7 more years as superintendent for the rest of my life. So
Wow.
We'll call you back
so
for
the-
a special meeting on August 1st.
Maybe that's when we'll write it up and get it to you to
Yeah, so
approve
thanks
it.
for that offer.
Okay.
I'm going to be very brief tonight, and as I've done the last couple of years. I don't have. I'd be glad to forward this to Kim. These are just sort of the notes that I put down, some things that I think are salient related to my 3 goals. I'm sorry, I should have made a copy for you guys.
No, well, if you want to forward them to me, then maybe I will pull some bulleted version of stuff together.
Yeah.
And
Well, I had 3 goals.
We'll have coffee.
One was to design and implement a central office transition plan. So these are all related to the merger, which has really been my work. goal 2 was to support both the ETSD and EWSD school boards in their transition. And I'll talk about how I interpret that in a second. And the last one was to remain focused on culture, climate, and human relations. So, goal 1, when I talked about a central office transition plan, there are several components to that. One is the transition leadership. We refer to them as a cabinet. I thought that was too formal of a word, but it stuck. Where it goes from here, I'm not sure. But really is our leadership team as we know them today in Essex Town and their leadership team in central office. And what does our work look like this school year together? I also wanted to focus on this leadership team and making sure that even though we didn't have a budget, which someone mentioned that tonight, that did change immeasurably my job. It was just a different experience.
Yes.
You know, not having a budget to guide the work. You know, like where's the North Star? Not that it diminished, but it was different. You know, but I wanted to make sure that this leadership team would continue to focus on what we know works through our strategic efforts. The central office support team was just huge, continues to be just a huge body of work going forward. And as you'll hear, I spent probably most of my time in that courtyard. And then finally is systems alignment. I want to think about transition with central office, starting to have those conversations about, you know, where do we sync up, where are we close, where are we miles apart, and just getting a better understanding myself to be able to help figure that out, so I can help mostly through succession planning, help Beth and her new team come in. I just needed to know how things work, and so I spent a fair amount of time getting to know that system. So I'm just going to tick off a couple of things and to let you know. Sort of, I didn't meet any of these goals, by the way.
Oh, then you have to stay.
I worked really hard at it, but you know, this is a multi-year plan, and all 3 of these, I think that I probably would put goal number 3 up to the top. Not that these are any priority in order, but that whole issue of culture and human resources and relationships are just huge. A number of things I think are worth mentioning, and one was kind of a watershed moment for me, an aha moment. We hired, with the board's approval, a project manager early into this school year who was an external consultant whose job it was to help support some of the systems alignment, some of the transition activities, some of the cultural shifts that needed to happen. Judy and I felt at the time that as co-leaders and fairly wedded and aligned to our current system, we may not always be the most objective in looking at how to make some of these transitions happen. So the decision was to bring in a project manager, and one of the tools that the project manager asked us to consider using, in fact we just subscribed to it, was a digital platform called FreedCamp. You probably, I don't know if you heard me mentioning FreedCamp back in the early parts of the merger. And it really was just think of an illustration that looked at buckets of work, siloed buckets of work, what about curriculum and assessment, instruction, and finance, and HR, and technology, and blah, 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 blah. And it was becoming pretty apparent to me. First of all, it wasn't a intuitive platform. It was I felt it was kind of clunky. But more importantly it didn't show to me the connectedness that this merger was all about. Because if you really believe that it's about people, then trying to communicate and do the work through a digital format just wasn't working. And I think that wasn't just my epiphany. I think other people were feeling like we're just cranking the work out without really having the question of like, why are we doing this stuff? I feel that I think I had I was a large factor in trying to transition out of that arrangement and move towards Judy and I just co-facilitating our leadership teams rather than an external manager. Someone, even though we knew we were gonna bump up against some stuff, it just seemed to be more organic if we took the lead in doing that work. Project manager, I think, understood that reason. We never really went back to the board, Kim, to ask for your approval to change direction. I just think we felt it was the right thing to do at the right time. And I think even though we made that shift in January, and even though it was somewhat of a challenge for Judy and I, not only because we hadn't been on the dance floor together a whole lot, but also we had a brand new chief financial officer, which made it even. And then she left, and we had this huge vacuum, and that just created that was really disruptive, you know. So that was a big shift, and I think a good change that was needed. What I probably focused the most, I'm just going to jump around here, so excuse me if you follow the ping pong ball here. And you're going to hear this theme throughout. For those of you who've studied sort of psychology 101 as undergraduates, you know that there's a hierarchy of needs that we have as human beings. And one of the basic needs that we have is to have security in your relationships, security in your housing, security with food and shelter, and all that sort of thing. And this merger affected the very basic needs that humans have. And so with all the stuff that we had to do, you know, the fundamental issue was that we need to take care of people. Even though, I mean, I was going through a transition myself, like I'm not going to be here anymore, and that's really weird. Like I wasn't ready to retire, so, but I had to suspend all my personal stuff and just recognize that the most senior to the most novice staff were all going through in central office a really hard experience, and they to this day are still questioning, you know, what it's really going to look like in the next couple of years. So I spent a great deal of time just having those deeper dialogue, those deeper conversations about validating people's concern, but I also had to keep a foot on the gas while I kept a foot on the brake, and always a hand on the wheel, which was hard during this transition, like who's in charge, making sure that those fundamental needs are being met in central office. I heard a lot about, in the fall, was this the right decision to make? People were starting to question the merit in this vote, and I heard that not only from my leadership college and support staff colleagues in central office, and it was loud in Chittenden Central, because I think in some ways, especially when we made the transition to Tyler Enterprises, which is our new software program, they had to give up what they've had, that Brian Donahue brought in as the former CFO 11 years ago. There was a lot of work that went into making that decision, and they had to give that up to come into Tyler. And that was really hard for Chittenden Central to accept that decision, which was a consensus decision. It wasn't, not everyone agreed with it, so there were some outliers who felt it's still not the best decision to make. And because Chittenden Central, I say this with all due respect, has more of a hierarchy to the organization, and they have a lot more things codified in policy and procedure. What's happened in a number of different things that have merged, system merger has basically taken what they already have. And so and it's good, a lot of it's good, but there's some things that just won't fit the new way of thinking about teaching and learning. So we heard early in the conversation, perhaps you've heard this as well, being taken over. It's not about a merger, it's about a takeover. It's about being subsumed, you know, the little district, the big ones, I mean, all that stuff. And so a lot of this transition support and goal number one was to stop that, you know, like, I can't say that, but, you know, you have to validate but move on, and you have to sort of, but there was like this phase of that people still are sort of grieving about what they used to have and what they no longer think they'll have in the future. And of course that's not true, but when one more thing comes from Chittenden Central, that boy, it smells and looks and sounds like Chittenden Central. Are we really a unified union? And it wasn't on anybody's part to try to influence something that's more familiar. It's just the way it played out. So a lot of the transition work with these different stakeholder groups was all about listening to what the best options are and knowing that the hourglass was tipped. You had to make a decision. But it was really difficult, and I've shared this with Kim many times. It's hard to make decisions when you just don't have true north identified in the compass yet, and yet we had to get things done. So my work with all these groups, and it's been really a great experience, has been fraught with false starts because there's no one in authority to make decisions. You know, I don't have the authority to move certain things in the union, either does Judy. So getting to yes is really hard because we went from a leadership team of 6, when you include Mark, to 28. And what was really clear to me in Chittenden Central is what Beth will have to get her head wrapped around is 28 is too many people at the table. It's just too many people. So based on the areas that need to happen, the work areas that need to happen over the next couple of years, Beth's gonna have to get really clear about when do we have 28 people, when do we have 11, when do we have just 4. And my thesis has always been you don't need everyone at the table to make decisions that are closest to kids. I think the fewer the better. But what does that structure look like? And I think that not only with the cultural aspects of our organization is different, but the way they did business is different than the way we do business. One last piece in this area has to do with decision making, which comes up constantly. It's going to come up tomorrow's meeting. Is that what we have here? I think, and again, this is not for this is just to talk about comparisons, not to put any value statement on this. We're really clear about what's district and what's building, what's principal, and what's superintendent. Like on that continuum of decision making, I get to say so because I'm the superintendent, which I don't play that card unless the governor tells me to. And then what's on the other end of the continuum of let's decide what the problem is and solve it on our own. I think we have a pretty clear delineation of who does what, when, under what circumstances. And as you heard tonight, it's more of a distributed model of leadership that I'm probably the last guy you want to have ask what's the answer on what's best for kids, because I'm the people closest to instruction are our teacher colleagues. And the relationship that central office has with their administrative staff is different. More as I think you heard Ellen say why she's such and all these guys, they roll up their sleeves, they're at the table. Like they know what they're talking about, they really do. And it's not that their team doesn't, but it's not as, my observations is that it's not as participatory because of the size of the organization, how they've structured, relationship between district and building leadership. So that was pretty, how do you navigate a transition leadership team knowing that the whole structure on decision making and what the central office role is compared is just different? And again, nothing that I could really impact in this short 10 months, but it's something that we've talked openly about with Beth, knowing that that's going to be a body of work that she's going to have to facilitate. We doing okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we still have this way, lastly, in this goal, we still do have this sense of, and Ellen, I think I can speak for her, because she's coming out of a position that's more inclusive. She used the word generalist, and the reason we're generalists, well, I think it's good for kids because we need to know what the right arm is doing. But it's also where bench is really lean. Like I have 3 other people who can do it, and I think what happens with a larger organization where you're not really clearly defined in terms of what your common purpose is and vision, you've got HR, finance, technology, so that also, we bumped up against in terms of the former CFO who no longer works at Chipman Central, retired a year ago or so. His role was really about the budget, and not always was the job structured in such a way that he really understood the things that were happening in HR. So not good or bad, it's just the way it was. And so I do think to get better, to be innovative and to push the envelope and transcend, I think we have to relook at roles and responsibilities because Ellen is in the middle now of technology and curriculum assessment and instruction. She's trying to figure it out, and it's not easy. So anyway, goal 2. We okay? Really, I want to keep checking with you guys.
Yeah.
Support both the ETSD and EWSD school boards in their transition. I interpret that goal was about board governance, and I think, as you guys mentioned tonight, I was challenged by only once a month, not only because I like being with you, but it's also there was a lot of stuff I just wish we could have talked more about. Policy development, that was really with EWSD, community engagement, superintendent succession planning, policy strategy, monitoring, and organization and communication. So really heavy stuff, and I'll just rattle off a few things I thought about. So one time a month I think was adequate. It wasn't enough for me because I felt I didn't feel as connected. I got to be with Kim, but it was mostly about EWSD. I missed having the conversations with Kim around what we're doing under the auspices of 2.8, but also agenda planning because we didn't have any budget. We were meeting once a month. It was just hard again to keep it. I was always enthusiastic, but it's like, okay, I didn't want it to be pro forma. I'm just doing it because it's on the calendar to do. So I don't know if I lost my zip and zap, but it was just different. And I guess I lament that a little bit, but it couldn't have happened any other way. I also know that Kim deserves about 9 different baskets of goodies from you guys, and 12 from me, because balancing service to both boards is hard to do.
Yeah.
And
You're doing it.
I recalled in my first 6 years as a superintendent, I had 54 board members and 9 boards, and I really valued that job, but I was glad to come to Essex for that. So even though I was only serving 2 boards, it was different, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
Kim can attest to that 2 sets of policies, 2 different governance structures, and I always felt like I was back in time, like, okay, it's this board meeting, so how do I behave at this board meeting versus this board? I don't have these conversations with the EWSD board, because they're not ready for them.
Right.
They will be. So it's that yin-yang thing that I constantly sort of, oh, I can't wait to get ready for that board meeting. No, that's, you know, it was different.
It's that knowing glance across the table when it happens too. 'Cause he and I will be like, I try not to make my eggs go big, or not big, because it's really good work happening, but we're learning to work together as a
Yeah.
board of 10, and we're trying to do it with 2 different superintendents,
Yeah.
and not having any of those true north things. So, but I do appreciate having someone to share that knowing glance with.
Yeah, and I think it was everyone.
it just
I mean,
happens.
leadership teams, it's all new to us. The way we do business, it's different. And again, I'm just at peace with that. I mean,
Right.
it is today. It is the way it is.
Yeah.
It will be different tomorrow. And I finally sort of turned that corner a number of months ago. Just like, never has this been about me, but I was getting like, like trying to make those adjustments. The other part of that for me is just continual growth. I mean, I've always been someone who just wants to keep pushing it a little bit to get, as Peter said at the retirement session 2 weeks ago, Mark said in his opening when we met him that he wasn't going to do anything different. If you're looking for the guy to make changes, it's not me. And he called it a dastardly comment. But I guess, my approach to change isn't about, okay, now it's time to flip off the light.
Yeah.
And now, it's just, it's slow in education, but you've got to
Yeah.
be patient and it'll get there sometime. So, again, this year of transition, it was more about my personal inner self that I was growing, I think, being able to sort of let go and, like, am I going to be here? And, the end of the year is going to come and we're going to have cake and it's going to be really hard. But I just grew as a person, and not so much in the professional realm, although I valued my service to my new colleagues on the board. It was more about just finding my peace, which took a while. But enough about me.
Well, a little help. I just want to say thank you
Yeah.
for helping me, because I think that we're transitioning and we're learning, and following your lead again, as I think we have all learned and so much doing. I joke about your patience and your ability to really remind us 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake. That is in my mind a lot, and I'm getting better at doing a little bit of that. It's going to take time.
It is.
It's, it can be good and be different, and, we're proud of where we are and what we've done together, and that is, can have a different flavor, but I will just say I'm incredibly grateful for that piece that I think you've learned about you, but you've taught us all the way through, and it guides me taking my deep breaths sometimes, just because,
Well,
we're
you're always going to have
maturing.
conflict will always exist when you try to be perfect at what you do, and not have inner balance. I mean, that's just going to be conflict. And with a merger, you're not going to have balance. You can never be perfect. So you just have to give up on that notion. And I think that's something that helped guide me through a lot of self-talk and meditation.
That's right, long cards.
I won't talk about the work with EWSD. I valued my role in serving the board, but it was like no other experience, because I felt Kim and Martha did an amazing job, continue to do an amazing job leading the work. And I feel like it was more in a support role. I mean, I did help to facilitate the policy piece with 3 board colleagues of Kim's on getting the mandatory policies in place, and that was good work. Fortunately, there are only 28 mandatory policies. I don't know if I had 4 more left. But I think what was really interesting about the process, and I know why it needed to happen, is that we received $300,000 from the AOE, 2 150 transition grants for the merger, and transition-like activities were paid for through this grant, one-time expenses. And because of that, and because CCSU was a larger of the two organizations, Judy became the superintendent of record for those grant dollars. What's more is because she had ostensibly the bench with the people in the organization that do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I don't. A lot of the tasks around the merger fell with her. Even though we had multiple conversations about how do we, there's no such thing as divvying that up, that's a misnomer, but where do you make the line, where do you draw the line in terms of what Mark's job is in facilitating and what Judy's job is in facilitating? She took a lot of the management operations stuff, and so it looked really sweet, like, well, great, I get to do the instructional leadership thing, right? You can do all that other stuff, even though I was very much willing to do whatever I could. It made sense. She thought it did for her to facilitate that because she had her people right in her office. Well, what I came to realize very soon into it, that I didn't have much effect on the instructional leadership piece either. Because what I mentioned earlier, structures, culture, expectations, it was just hard to move some of those things. And who was I as a superintendent in Essex Town to try to impact some of the bigger decisions that have to be made around instructional leadership? All good, but it was just something, it was like I was starry-eyed and said, this is going to be great. It just didn't work very well. So, that led to a bunch of issues in terms of just trying to get the work done with our respective teams. And so there's a lot of examples, but I'll just leave you with one in terms of a piece of work that I did over several sessions, and it had to do with building capacity of trust within the organization. It goes back to those basic human needs, right? So there are 3 C's. One is communication, and when our communication is hampered by 4 miles of asphalt, different norms around when you respond to emails and telephone calls, where you have meetings. I put in over 600 miles in the last 4 months, and they're all going down to central office down there. So how much is there coming here? It's all what's going down. Yeah. Again, no criticism. It's just communication was really stymied because of those things. So communication, because it was not tight, not like we have here, that creates trust issues. You can understand why that would be the case. People are not should be mistrusted. If you're not communicating well, there's a trust. Competence is the other C. That I think that we all each had teams on whether or not certain people have the competence to move certain levels of certain bodies of work forward for lots of different reasons. So we have questions about competence. That diminishes trust. And finally, which I think is the biggest, is contractually. Like whose responsibility and role is it to do what during this merger? So we don't have clearly articulated roles and responsibilities. I was surprised. I get surprised all the time with decisions like, where did that one come from? And because we have lots of different people in the kitchen doing all well-intended, really good work, including boards. I mean, I've been surprised by sometimes different board members at EWSD have reached out and done things with certain people that I was not aware of. That would never happen here. Everything goes through the superintendent's office here. That's the way your governance structure is handled. But because there were so many things that needed to happen and roles and responsibilities were not clearly articulated in all cases, again, it leads to, am I not being kept in the conversation because they don't trust that I would do a good job, or is it, have I not been clear about? So contractual competence and communication was a series of workshops I did with at least our central office staff and brought it up with our friends down at Chittenden Central, because it's something, again, that's going to have to be recalibrated when Beth comes in, really establishing those clear expectations. I'm not going to talk about the org chart. We talked about that for months, Kim, but I just say parentheses, it was challenging. I think we have a transition organizational chart that will serve the new unified union well next year, but again, I think it's going to have to be revisited, especially a couple of positions which, I don't think there's clarity yet in terms of what its long-term role is in the organization, which I don't want to mention those positions, but I think there's some questions about how that's going to look. And Beth, I think we'll be jumping right into that. Finally is remain focused on culture, climate, and human relations. I mentioned the 4 areas about transparency, accessibility, communication, speaking, writing, and listening, and celebration. And I do think out of all these goals, this is sort of insidious. I mean, it's throughout everything that we do as leaders, but especially in this time of we're somewhat fragile with some of our relationships. Being able to be clear and honest and candid and transparent with everything we're doing is going to be really important going forward. Accessibility. I pride myself in being available. You know, I don't want people to have to go through 4 people to get to me. My door is open, and it's such a cliche, but I wanted to make sure during this period of time, not just with new colleagues, but also those current, to make sure that I'm not a distance 2 miles away, that, you know, I'm always here. And people knew that, and I think really appreciated it. So that should never end. I mean, I think the top of the organization should always be available to the people that he or she is serving, and that was really important to me, and still is. Writing, speaking, and listening, we did some tours together. I did a sort of a quasi blog that was kind of fun. I've done some writing staff emails, somewhat just to allay concerns, but just again, I'm paying attention to this stuff, and things will be okay. I think you heard someone say, Kevin, who's our Mr. Optimist, things are good, everything's good. Well, they are on the surface, but there are some things that, you know, the ground is starting to move a little bit underneath people's feet, so we have to make sure that we continue to communicate, just wicked communicate. I mean, just get it out there all the time. It's going to be important. And celebration, lest we forget, we have to just make sure that we pause the button, not take life too seriously, have some cake, recognize that we're people who have families and other interests outside of our busy jobs, and to make sure we build that in, not in a disingenuous way, but that we connect with our colleagues in a meaningful, non-professional way. I heard Peter say, and I would agree, you know, it is about determination, but it's also about a way of thinking. It's about a way of being, and I think it's more, we have to do that as leaders. We can't it's just not about curriculum assessment instruction. I mean, how boring. I mean, it's about people, how exciting we are as people. So how do you build in time to be able to learn about ourselves and to learn how to learn about other people? I read this great book that Sue McCormick turned me on to. Yankelovich. I can't remember the guy's last name. Something like that. But it's about the meaning of dialogue. It's about 20 years old. And I bought a book for all of my colleagues here last couple weeks ago. And it's a really kind of a simple book, but it reminded me of how important dialogue is. You know, and he goes to there are 4 Ds. He speaks about debate. We're really good at these first 3.
Yeah.
Debate, discussion, and deliberation. Where we really fall short is dialogue, is to really go deep into a conversation. I think you heard Peter talk about that tonight. Having a conversation with people, you know, and really just don't clutter it with, when we develop agendas, we put 19 things and we only get to 3 of them, so stop it, you know, like, take time to really go deep in a conversation. I think that's going to serve the new leadership team and district well, and hopefully, Kim, the board well, when we go into the bigger questions of why we do what we do. But then we have to set the stage accordingly on how we get that work done. So this, for me, is this goal really is about meeting people where they are, but also creating a new culture that allows for, you know, transparency, accessibility, really good communication. Not just here's what we're doing, but what do you think, and how do I take what you think to help me inform as a new superintendent where do we go in the future? And finally, is the celebration piece. I didn't do enough of that, but it's something that we can't leave. So I went as fast as I could. So anyway, it's been a good year. My bad, didn't meet those goals, but you know I will. Give me another 2 years to get more. I've spoken to Beth sort of one-on-one with Beth about my goals and things that I think are important, and ones which I know that she'll pick up the mantle and continue with to some degree. So.
I hope that you express concerns to her that you have.
Yeah, I think I expressed them in I wonder if, rather than, I mean, I don't,
Okay, well.
but yeah, there's a way to frame that, but she's aware that this is a mighty big thing, and yeah, she's asking the right questions.
Good.
And I think that Judy probably is having similar, I would be surprised if she's not having similar conversations. I mean, you'd have to be obtuse not to see, you know, some of the things that are going to need immediate attention.
Thank you.
So you have a whole, you could help the Vermont State School Board Association create a guide for how to approach, because, you know, what I'm hearing is that
Your plan.
that lack of like that direct focus, that superintendent, that North Star seems to have been
Everyone is
challenging.
experiencing that to some degree.
Mhm.
Rachel,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, I do think that, I mentioned this to Kim, I do think there's a level of field support that would be interesting to take a look at to serve other boards who are sort of in the throw, even though I think what we're doing is fairly unique. I mean, that's obvious, like, whoa, like, no one else is doing this stuff. Two organizations, but I think there's a link. Kim, as a board member of the VSBA, probably hear this quite a bit, but there's a
think-
need for it.
I would imagine too, even where you're unifying within an SU and not two superintendencies, I can just see where how boards operate as boards of 5, then becoming boards of 10 or otherwise. It's not just taking an SU board and doing the work, because SU boards in
Yeah.
different pockets of the state operate differently as well. So thinking about the work through a unified lens is unique to a school district,
Yeah.
one hopes, and not simply building based, but rather figuring out how the central office is in service to the educational outcomes that are being sought, and really everybody's work has to have some perspective of everybody else's. I heard these guys say it. I know that we're wearing so many hats, and even in a bigger organization where there are more resources, I think that sharing of why things are being done is going to be really important, and
It is.
I would think
Yeah.
that
In all fairness, and not, I mean, I hope viewers at home, it's not about being critical at all. It's just being
No.
really observant and good listeners, and like what are people talking about? What are people paying attention to? And then to try to influence the next step. And I know I speak for Judy, my colleague Judy, that she too has faced similar problems with sometimes create obstacles for the work that needs to happen. And as Kim knows, I mean, there's more moving parts there,
Yeah.
and so there's more management responsibilities. I like to think that part of the reason I have fewer management responsibilities, I think that I do a pretty good job with leading the organization.
Yeah.
And I'm not invited by,
We think so.
Yeah. I would
not
agree.
that she's not leading well, but I just think there's a different culture around things like labor agreements and those sorts of things that we don't have as much of that here. So it's not one person, it's just, again, it's a cultural aspect of the organization that counts.
a little bit in my wonder. I thought about it at the retirement celebration, and I think about it as they sit here and share their goals. Our leadership team did. I wonder how to maintain those type of interactions. They clearly understood that we know our role and how we've always operated, and I heard a lot of appreciation, which I am glad that this has worked for them to do their best work. And I wonder, and maybe we can ponder, and if you guys have thoughts and suggestions, how it fits, regardless of the model, in a way that isn't just principal reports, but those are pretty connected conversations these guys have when they bring forward student data, for instance. And I don't know, that doesn't happen by flipping a switch, and all of a sudden it happened over years. But I would like, and then I wonder and I wish and hope for the new board as we enter into a year of actually having students. This last year has been an interesting type of board service without students and just needing to get some stuff done. It wasn't as rewarding in the same way this work has been. So I will welcome whatever thoughts you guys have on how to bring that intimacy in an appropriate way, which I think it has always been brought to us in the right context, into the work, because I fear that people will feel as though there's not a connection anymore with the folks at the board level. And we've talked about that at the unified board table to figure out if there was a place where we'd interact with principals. We ended up doing it by virtue of going on tours of the buildings, given the year that we were having. But I think, Martha and I can talk about that and talk with Beth and think about how best to have meaningful conversations periodically, well planned and properly framed.
Yeah. And it's not about tweeting, it's not about the stuff, you know, I think we
Yeah.
have to be really careful when we bring
So what?
building leaders to the table. It's not about the list of all the great things we're doing, but it's the so what.
Yeah.
Show me the proof that what you're doing, spending time on, is actually having the desired
Mm.
results.
Yeah.
And I've been to too many presentations in my career to hear people articulate about all the wing flapping and all the great stuff, and yet what bottom line is, where's the evidence? You know,
Yeah.
so I do think that's the important conversation to have. So anyway, that concludes my
Thank you.
17, 16,
Thank you.
17.
Oh, man.
For next year now.
Enjoy a trip.
Your
in the
future
cold
goals.
weather.
Like that.
Fishing or motorcycling.
Next thing is VW Vogue.
Right.
Or bus, or whatever.
Hopefully not in
Few
Idaho.
projects.
The to-do list, or?
Merger updates. The negotiations work continues with an eye towards seeing ideally if we can get through this before July 1. I will say I am incredibly grateful for the commitment of the people around the table on all sides of the table. Not just the hours, but the honest hard work of having harder conversations, thinking about what's best for kids, knowing there are places in there we are going to be not so much disagreeing about what's best for kids, but how that's balanced with how we respect our educators and our taxpayers, and provide it in a sustainable way. But there's not been nary a moment or two, you know, maybe a couple times where you have a sense of the frustration that you read about all over the place, but just so rarely in this process. And so much more often, I am just left with a real sense of gratitude. And, you know, if we don't get there in the time allotted to us, it's not going to be for lack of having tried and having done so respectfully. And I think that that's something that all of us doing that work can feel proud of. And it speaks to the interest in maintaining or having relationships that can come to a place of collaboration. So that can be reassuring, even though we're zeroing in on T-2 and counting on whether or not July 1 has a unified contract. So, but the work continues both on the teacher side and the support staff side, and the support staff contracts were more diverse than the teacher contract. But on all fronts, we're trying to continue to move forward and do what's right for kids and educators and taxpayers. So I know that's the biggest update that's on the front of my mind in our merge updates, and I'll invite you, Mark, to fill in, and I'm sure it'll prompt my memory on something.
Well, I think there's a lot going on, and I think the board should be proud of the work that they're doing now and the work that lies ahead. I mean, they've coalesced pretty quickly. I mean, a 10-member board, some of whom have not served in this capacity. I'm just really impressed with, you know, insightfulness, their willingness to help out. People, Kim, like several others, are just working 20, 30 hours a week, probably more times. But there's a lot of heavy lifting that's going into the process, and it will probably likely continue over the next year or so. So I think that the communities of Westford, EJ, and the town should be just really thankful that we've got the type of stewardship that we have currently on the board. I find that there's excitement on the board, even though some of it's hard work. I do feel people are engaged. Look at 4.5, your policy. People come prepared.
Yeah.
I think there's still some cases where, you know, persons are just read it an hour before the meeting, but people are at the table because that's life, right? But I'm really impressed with the level of excitement, enthusiasm that exists. It's a great board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic. Agreed. All right. Takeaways for our last meeting?
Yeah, what
Wait,
do you-
Dawn
what
has
do you
made
do
sure
for
that
that?
we signed, I hope you'll notice, that in the book we have signed your last best board.
You are. Yeah.
You won't say otherwise either. Yes. But she made sure to remind me that.
Absolutely.
You know.
No question. Oh, no question about it. Yeah,
Not that we're competitive or anything.
Oh, no question about it.
That would be the pattern of bags or anything.
I know.
I don't think it should be our takeaway though.
I think
Signed,
I
your
think-
last
I think the
best
student
board.
enrollment should be a takeaway.
Yeah.
You're very good.
Yeah.
Yes. That was solid.
You know, do we, as part of our consent agenda, was the transfer, like agreeing for the transfer?
Oh, yeah. It was consent agenda. I don't know if it.
I don't know.
But
I should say that again.
I'm just thinking, so as part of our, was the
Adopted the
resolution to
affect
Land
transfer.
transfer. Okay, that's good.
And I just think that for some of
Yeah.
our taxpayers,
We
and
need
some
that
of
in
our-
there
it-
because yeah.
that is something.
Adopted the resolution.
That's
And I
substantial.
think that another, to us, what was probably the most valuable was the principals, yourself sharing goals, vision.
Yeah.
Hopes.
And maybe,
Hopes.
among the common things
That's what
I
we've
heard
probably-
was, I definitely think so, and I just think I just heard common themes of pride in the work. I heard growth as listeners and learners and leaders, and the collaboration and power of the PLCs.
And with much appreciation to Mark's leadership.
Absolutely.
And to the teachers.
Yeah,
I mean, to the.
Staff.
to the staff.
'Cause I could see the
Coming
principals
to the
looking
work.
up and looking down and
Agreed.
saying, "Wow, those are great people
Yeah.
in both directions."
And the empowerment of
Mhm.
experts, whether it be in PLCs or in the curriculum groups, and just clarity to support and empower seems like some of the themes. That listening piece was big.
So we have 4 takeaways.
Yeah,
Oh,
and we
dear.
can have as many as we
It's our
want.
last
This is our
one.
last
Gosh
meeting.
darn it.
Keep going, you guys. What do you got?
Good brownies. No.
We should
And
find.
a hearty thanks to the entire team, board members, leaders, staff. This has been an awesome journey.
How long has Essex Junction, Essex Town School District existed?
Don, do you know that?
1960. No, we became no.
Well,
'cause-
this campus.
yes, but no. The actual we became from Essex Center. We left CCSU in 1967, I believe.
Huh.
Sorry, 70s, like-
49 and 50 years.
I think it's
50 years. It's our 50th.
It is 50 years. So is that
Wow.
It's weird.
That is bizarre.
because I'm pretty sure. Oh my gosh, I can't. Shut the camera off a minute. It was
Are we going to reveal our ages and stuff?
no, because they were transitioning. No,
All sorts of shit.
When I was 3 years old.
In 1968, when I finished 8th grade here, they were just changing from CCSU to Essex Town. So they actually,
Late 60s.
the vote
So it
actually
was-
happened in
So this building was
1967.
built in 60.
This building was a long time after I left, but I did all my elementary school there,
Elementary
and the
school.
Classical Institute was there, and the whole little white school, and the Catholic Church. And these buildings didn't exist
Yeah.
when we switched.
Well, if I were to pull my notes, I could tell you when we came into the property. We got that detail now.
Diane
We all know
Arthur
it.
had quite the history of, I guess, whatever her first contract was, it was signed prior to
That
the
unification or wherever it was
uni-
somewhere.
believe
yeah.
it.
and so she was going
Oh my
through, like,
gosh.
at one point, not long ago, she was just talking about how it's all circled along with just educational theories and
Right.
how it's all rotated. So she just felt it was interesting that she kind of came into her career as we were coming Essex
Right.
Town, and she
And
left
came
her
out
career
of it.
just
Of
before
leaving.
it went the other way.
That's
You know, it
that's
just
something.
it was.
Well, and
It's
interestingly,
fascinating.
having had the pleasure of being in our classroom with one of my kids, I just feel as though there never felt as though there was somebody any more current than she was, having transitioned through everything, as I'm sure is the case with so many of our educators, but personally having spent time with her, I wouldn't have thought of her as a historic figure. She could have been the most current recent grad in the building, it felt to me. So, anyway.
Madam Chair, for the last time, I make the motion we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all
I
those.
feel
in-
like you should say second, and you should say
Yeah.
second, and you.
we can do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
We do have one more meeting.
All right.
It'll be
Five-
short.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will.
I was like, this
To be
feels really
determined, by the way.
weird.
Next meeting we can say is to be determined.
Until
Passes
October.
5-0. Thank you, guys.
So it will be October.